Okay, welcome. I don't know if anyone else is going to join this masterclass. And Steph, just so you know, we are streaming live to YouTube right now. This is my first time doing this. Okay. I will get it set up so that we. I don't know if anyone else. We are streaming live to YouTube right now. Do you hear that? I will get it set up so that there's a delay. Okay. So I just turned down the volume on YouTube so that it doesn't keep talking to me. Hopefully that works. This will be fun. If anything, I can go delete the video when it's over. So welcome to this webinar. This is the first in a series of webinars that we are putting on at Spa for the Soul. That is Julie Christensen Counseling and Psychotherapy. We are a private practice in psychotherapy, a collaborative practice made up of several psychotherapists working together out of our new home at 63 Ontario Street in St. Catharines, Ontario. And so the first in our series is entitled Angry Birds. And for those of you who do not know me, my name is Julie Christensen. I am the owner of the practice. And I am trying to find the item that I want to share with you. And for some reason, I don't see it. Here we go. All right, so I'm actually just going to share my screen with you so that you can see the presentation that I have created. So the session that we're doing today is called Angry Birds. I'm going to be with you for the next 50 minutes or so. And if there are any questions, please feel free to throw those into the chat. And as we move forward and we figure out exactly how to make this work, of course, as we're streaming live on YouTube or through Facebook, if there are questions coming in through there, we will try and get those moderated as well so that we can answer all your questions in real time. Of course, if your questions are not answered in real time, we will certainly go through the comments and the questions after the fact and make sure that your questions are answered. And at the end of this masterclass, I'll be sharing our contact information. So of course, if you reside within the province of Ontario and you would like to connect with us and have your questions answered face-to-face or through a session, we can certainly arrange that for you. So without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about the Angry Birds. We're going to share some strategies for resolving anger with you. And so what I'd like to do, just to give you a basic agenda, is I'm going to talk a little bit about what anger is, what it isn't, and then talk about why we feel angry. And then I want to share with you just some high level philosophies or ideas that will help you start shifting the way that you conceptualize anger and how you choose to express it. And then I'm going to give you some strategies so that you can resolve anger more effectively and do that in a really safe way. And then we'll wrap it up. And of course, like I say, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll make sure that those get answered. So let me see if I can move us down a page. So what is anger exactly? So anger is a basic emotion. And I think a lot of times when we try to think about what anger is, and we think about anger management specifically, there is this thought that, anger is what we see. Anger is what we see. And so if you'll just take a look at the anger iceberg on the left of your screen, you'll see that the description here, it says icebergs are large pieces of ice. We know what icebergs are. More of the iceberg, or most of the iceberg, is hidden below the water. And they say that this is how anger works. Often when we're angry, there are other emotions hidden under the surface. And here's the problem with this anger iceberg. The assumption is that anger is something that you can see. And I'm going to ask a question and feel free to answer in the chat. Have you ever been angry, like really, really angry, and not wanted other people to know? If so, were you able to successfully hide the fact that you were angry? Were you able to mask it? If you can throw something in there in the chat for me, Steph, that would be awesome. But it's a question I want everyone watching to consider. Have you ever felt so angry that you could just explode, but you managed to hide how you were feeling from other people? If that's true, then anger is not something that we necessarily see, right? Anger is not what we see. It says here that all of these other emotions under the surface are informing those angry feelings or may be masked by those angry feelings. And that may be partly true. The thing is, anger is an emotion. It is not behavior. What we see, if you look at the iceberg imagery on the right-hand side of your screen, what we see on the surface is behavior. We see yelling, we see screaming, we see swearing, we see verbal aggression, verbal abuse, we see acting out, temper tantrums, whatever. What we're seeing is behavior. We are not seeing the emotion, we are seeing behavior. Everything below the surface of the iceberg is emotion. And this is really important for you to get because traditional anger management wants you to believe that anger is behavior and behavior can be managed. And I'm going to dispel that myth today, I hope, to show you that anger is what we feel. It's not what we do. And we want to have an understanding of if we want to shift the behavior, we have to deal with what's causing the stuff, causing those emotions in the first place. And I'm just seeing here in the chat, Steph says, yes, for sure, at work when you have to be careful what you bring to the table, keep composure during the conversation, but you have to vent afterwards. And yeah, that's absolutely the case, right? That when we're in certain kinds of situations, we do have to hold it together. It's not always appropriate to combust wherever you are. And so you use your behaviors to tamp that down and to mask how you're truly feeling. And that's what's happening to the right of your screen with the iceberg of emotions. So the key things I want you to take away here is that anger is an emotion. It is not behavior. Anger is a basic emotion. We're all born with the ability to experience and express anger. And that ability really starts to show itself around the first year of age. And because anger is a basic emotion, it is universally recognizable. Wherever you go on the planet, if someone is expressing anger with their facial expressions, other people can read that expression and recognize it as anger. Okay, so it's a universally experienced and expressed emotion that when we express it in certain ways, it's visible to others. Okay, so let me scroll down to our next. So why do we feel angry? What are the things that make us mad? We've broken this down into four contexts or four kind of scenarios for why we feel angry. Number one, someone breaks a rule, right? I see this a lot when I'm driving, and I often use this analogy because I spend a lot of time on the road. But when people break the rules of the road, that's when accidents happen. And so often I'll find myself getting angry when I'm in my car because someone ran a red light or someone drifted into another lane without signaling, or someone just stopped in the middle of the road. This is my personal favorite, when they just stop in the middle of the road and they don't let you know what they're doing. So like, are you turning? Are you broken down? What's happening, right? They just stop. And then, 30 seconds later, the signal comes on. Oh yeah, I wanted to turn here. That kind of stuff makes me crazy. But, when rules are broken, we tend to get angry. When our boundaries are violated, we also can feel angry about that. When our needs our expectations are not met, or we feel like our goals are being thwarted, the efforts that we're making to achieve a goal are being interfered with, that can often make us feel angry. And I think often of my granddaughter, who is just going on 3. And she, when she was little and she was trying to, oh, fun stuff. That's amazing. People driving the wrong way into the Tim Hortons. Yes, that is a broken rule, and that might make people a little bit upset. I think about my granddaughter Nova, and when she was learning how to put blocks together and pull them apart, she was really good at putting them together, but she had a hard time pulling them apart. And she would get really, really frustrated because she didn't have the upper body strength to pull the blocks apart after she had put them together. And so she would express that, right? She would grunt and she'd groan and she'd cry sometimes because it wasn't working. And she was realizing that she had a goal. She had something she wanted to accomplish, and she was having difficulty accomplishing that. And the frustration of that needed to be expressed. So the key thing I want you to take away from this is that, yes, there are legitimate reasons why people feel angry. But we don't, in anger solutions, we don't say that people have anger problems or they have anger management problems. You have problems that make you feel angry. It's different. You don't have anger problems. Anger is normal. It's natural. It's a basic emotion. Everybody feels it, right? And we all feel it for these same 4 reasons. So it's not that you have anger problems. You have problems that are making you angry. A broken rule is a problem. A violated boundary is a problem. An unmet need or an unmet expectation is a problem, right? Barriers to goals are problems. So you have problems that make you feel angry, not the other way around. So I'd like to do this little warm up, and you don't have to put this in the chat, but I'd like you to just think about this. What would you fill in here? When I feel angry, I do something. Immediately, I feel a certain way. And then later, I feel another certain way. So an example is when I feel angry, I throw things. Immediately, I feel powerful. And then later, I feel ashamed. Okay. When I was a teenager, when I was a kid, the way that I would have filled this in would be something like, when I feel angry, I cry. Then immediately I feel stupid. And then later I feel even more stupid because I really wanted to get people with my words. I really wanted to tell them how I felt. But when I was a kid, I would get so incensed that I would be overcome with emotion and I would lose my ability to generate language. And so I would just cry. And then I would feel stupid because I really want to say something right now. And instead, I'm just standing here like an idiot crying. And then later, I would feel stupid because then the words would come and it would be too late. So that's kind of the framework for this, this statement. The whole point of doing a statement like this is to show you that when you're feeling a certain thing, I mean, we could do the same thing for when I feel happy, right? When I feel happy, I do this. And then immediately I feel this way. Or when I feel afraid, when I feel ashamed, I do whatever. And then immediately I feel something, right? Like we could use this for any kind of emotion, but right now we're using this in the context of anger. And what we really want to do is make that distinction between how I feel and what I do. And also the understanding that everything that I do generates another emotion, right? So I feel this way, I do something. I do something, I feel a certain way. And then I feel another sort of way, and then I do something else, and then I feel another sort of way. So we often think that when we are feeling angry, that the behavior is the thing that's sort of front facing, but really the behavior is in a response to how we're feeling. And I see Steph has shared, when I feel angry, I feel like I'm going to internally combust. Immediately I feel flustered. Later I feel disappointed. Yeah, and you learn so much about yourself just from that statement, right? Because you understand that feeling, that heat, the flustered feeling it interferes with your ability to process the problem that caused the anger in the first place, right? And that's why later you feel disappointed. Not so much maybe that the issue got to you so much, but because you were the flustered feeling, that feeling of heat and rage interfered with the ability to actually solve the problem. And here's the thing I want you to know as we move forward, that if you learn to solve the problems that caused the anger in the first place, the anger will take care of itself. And I apologize for the little noises that you're hearing. I have a sick puppy in the office with me. And not so sick now. He's happy. All right. So let's talk about thoughts. Thoughts become things. I know you've heard this before. If any of you have watched The Secret, if you're, if you have a membership on Mind Valley, if you have learned anything about visualization, manifestation, any of those things, you've probably heard this statement that thoughts become things. So let's talk about what that really looks like in terms of our thought processes. And we'll begin at the top of this chart with the yellow arrow. So let's say that an event takes place. You will immediately have a thought about that. Okay, so the example that Steph provided was someone driving the wrong way into the Tim Hortons drive-through this morning. So you see that, and perhaps the thought is, oh my goodness, this person is going to cause an accident. Immediately, feelings of anxiety will come up, right? I don't want to get into an accident, and the roads are slippery, and traffic is bad, and why is this person behaving this way? And then you have all of this anxiety that comes up. Well, that anxiety doesn't feel good. And so often the next thing that we will want to do is to choose some sort of a response that will help to tamp down that feeling of anxiety. Now, sometimes we will choose wisely. Most of the time, people choose poorly. And they choose poorly because their focus is on trying to make that feeling go away more than it is about generating a positive long-term outcome. And so when the feelings of anxiety come up, the immediate need is to make that go away because it doesn't feel good. And so making that go away might look like rolling the window down and hollering at the person in the other car, right? It might be about flashing your lights or, honking your horn or doing some other thing that gives you a sense of satisfaction that they know that they've broken the rule, and it helps to tamp down your anxiety. However, doing those things might generate a really poor outcome because if the other driver decides that they want to get into it, let's get into it. All right. So they're going to get out of their vehicle. Now you have to get out of your vehicle. And before you know it, it's escalated and a really poor outcome is the result. That doesn't help anything. And so what we want to do, instead of just reacting all the time to our feelings and choosing actions that create negative outcomes, what we want to do is think about the desired outcome first. So when an event triggers a thought and a feeling, and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I realize that a boundary has been violated, and that makes me really angry. Think about the desired outcome. And the desired outcome is, I would like this person who just broke the boundary or violated the boundary to understand that this is a boundary for me and that I'm going to hold this line. And I do not want them to cross this boundary line again. What's the best thing that I can do to communicate that to this person so that I get the outcome I desire? When you shift your thoughts that way, what happens is that all of a sudden your feelings shift, because now you're shifting away from feeling hopeless or angry or frustrated. And now you're thinking, oh, I could actually affect some change here. So now I'm feeling hopeful. Now I'm feeling a little bit more confident. Maybe now I'm feeling whatever that is, that je ne sais quoi, that helps me to access my assertive communication skills, right? I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling like I have some direction in how I'm going to solve this problem. I hope that makes sense. And so what I encourage clients to do is to always think about how they would like things to turn out. How would you like things to turn out? And when you're thinking about that, You will choose more carefully and you will take action that is directed towards your desired outcome rather than just fixing the feeling. So that's our thought matrix. And I want to share with you one more grid here. And I call this one, I'm not very original with these things. This is just called my choice matrix. And so I want to walk you through this because your choices determine your outcomes. If thoughts become things, thoughts inform your feelings inform your choices, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are choosing the best option to get us the best possible outcome. So the top left-hand corner of this choice matrix, you'll see that very often, in the early days of trying to resolve emotional pain, we will often make the wrong choice. Why? Because we're trying to fix our feelings. So if I could go back to what Steph said in the chat, just as an example, when I feel angry, it feels like I'm going to internally combust, and immediately I feel flustered, and then later I feel disappointed, right? So wrong choice, combustion, feels bad, right? Creates short-term pain. Everybody's unhappy. Everybody's uncomfortable. It feels very awkward. And there's long-term pain because relationships suffer. So we want to move out of wrong choice feels bad, short-term pain, long-term pain. But hey, sometimes the wrong choice feels really good. And this is where a lot of people get stuck because feelings fixing feels good, right? Let me give you an example. So we've got a couple, they're fighting. The one partner in the couple decides, I'm done with this. I just want to avoid the whole thing. Avoidance is self-rewarding. It's self-reinforcing because if the thing that I'm facing right now makes me feel anxious or makes me feel upset, and I avoid it, and that means I get away from that stimulus, I immediately feel good. So I'm getting short-term gain. However, if I continue to avoid the issues that are contributing to the problems in my marriage, I will end up in a divorce, and that will create long-term pain. Does that make sense? So even though the wrong choice sometimes feels good and it gives us that short-term relief, if it's creating long-term outcomes, we need to move away from that. And so we want to move down into the left bottom quadrant, which is the right choice. So if we're talking about our couple, the right choice might be to stay and talk it out, but it's uncomfortable. It feels bad, right? It's awkward. I don't like talking about my feelings. I don't want to be vulnerable in this relationship. I just want to have control, and it feels weird to concede control to my partner, right? So it's the right choice, but it doesn't feel good. It's going to give you short-term pain, but if you stick with it, and you have those difficult conversations, and you talk it out, and you show your vulnerability, and you're honest, right? That builds intimacy, and over time, that intimacy is going to contribute to more commitment, to more passion in the relationship, and that's long-term gain, okay? And so we want to move then from out of making the right choices that feels awkward, feels bad, feels uncomfortable, to a place where making the right choice feels good. We want the right choice to feel good because then we get the short-term gain, right? It feels good immediately, but we're also getting great long-term outcomes. And that's where I want to direct my clients to all the time. I always want to move people into that place where they're making good choices and it feels good to them. It serves the greater good, gives them short-term gain, short-term benefits, and long-term benefits. How do we get there? How do we get there? I'm going to teach you something that is like the one of the linchpins of anger solutions, and that is the TSA decision-making model. So we're going to go to that in the next slide. And perhaps, I'm looking at the time, perhaps what I will do is I will share a story, and anyone who knows me or has ever attended any of my seminars before has probably heard this story. So if you have, I apologize that you're hearing it again. So, and I've actually posted this story on my social media as well. So this was years ago, 2001. It was June. It was It was like monsoon season in on the Eastern Seaboard, and I was heading off to New York City to do some work for the Ford Foundation. I was pretty jazzed about that. I'm not going to lie. I was excited, and I had planned ahead. I parked my car at the park and fly, and I was waiting for the shuttle. And the shuttle was a little slow coming, and it was pouring like just torrential downpours. And I was soaking wet. I'm waiting for my bus, and my bus comes up. And because I am friendly and I like to talk to people, I got on the bus, and there was no one else on the bus except for the driver. And so I sat down in the front seat and I went, oh my goodness, it is so wet outside. And this bus driver gave me the side eye and said in what he thought was a sultry little voice, I thought women like to get wet. And my head exploded. Hey, like I talk about internal combustion. My head exploded. I was just like, you did not just say that to me. Like, I just couldn't believe it. So, in my head, the first thing, like if you think back to that thought matrix, the first thing, like I was so instantly furious that the first thought that came to my head was, I will cut your tongue out, and I will, like, I'm going to murder you, and I'm going to bury you in the mud in the back of this lot, and I will drive my own self to the airport. Like, that's kind of the level of rage that I was experiencing in that moment. And then a little voice in the back of my head was going, TSA, 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 because, reputation, right? Like, you can't be an anger expert and like be killing bus drivers because they said something rude. So like, figure this out, Julie. So, this little TSA was rolling around in the back of my head. And so I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And so here's the process for TSA. The heavy work, the heavy lifting gets done right here when you're thinking it through. First question, what is happening? What is happening? Okay. What is happening is I'm on a bus with somebody that I need who I'm not sure is actually safe. That's what's happening. Did he say what I heard? Yeah, he said it, and he said it in the way that I thought he said it, right? So that's what's happening. What does it mean? It means that because I might not be safe, whatever I do next matters. I have to be careful of how I respond to what's just been said, because I don't have time to wait for another shuttle. If I wait for another shuttle, I'm going to miss the bus. So what it means is that I have to proceed with caution in order to get to my destination safely. So I'm already thinking about my desired outcome, right? Even with the second question. Question number 3 is, how do I feel? Because remember that thought matrix, thoughts, then feelings. So what's happening? What does it mean to me? How do I feel about it? Well, I know how I feel about it. I'm angry enough to do murder, so I must be pretty mad. What's my desired outcome? My desired outcome is to go to New York. That's my desired outcome. I just want to go to New York. I just want to get to the airport. I want to get on the plane. I want to go do the thing. I want to work with the Ford Foundation so I can put this on my resume, right? Like, that's what I want. Now comes the hard part. What can I do to get that desired outcome? What can I do? What actions can I take? So then I started running them down, and I was like, okay, murder is out, cutting his tongue out is out. I gross out at the sight of blood, so I don't even know. Like, that rage is so irrational. There's no way that I could even murder someone if blood was involved, because I can't do it. Right. So it's like, no, I can't do that one. No, I can't do this one. So I'm running them through, and I'm asking the question, what is the best thing that can happen if I do this? What's the worst thing that can happen if I do this? And this is all happening very quickly in my head, like in milliseconds, this is processing. And then the other question is, what is the lifetime value of this event? So let's just put that one aside for right now. Let's just go back to best thing, worst thing. I landed on something my mom used to say when my mom got offended. When my mom was offended, she was very strict, adhered to the British way of doing things, and so she would do this thing where if you said something rude to her, she would say, I beg your pardon, and then you'd be all embarrassed and you'd want to like just shrink into yourself. And I thought, okay, this bus driver is probably from the Caribbean. He's probably got a mom who would slap his ears and do worse if she knew he was talking to a woman like that. Maybe I can try that, because I didn't know what else to do. And so and I was, honestly, guys, I was very, very angry. So the anger that radiated out of my voice was real. And I guess the other thing I should say is that when I get really, really angry, I don't get hot like some people get hot. I get cold, like ice cold. And my voice goes low and it is rather menacing. I'm happy that I don't get that angry. Um, so it kind of came out like this. I beg your pardon. And I was like, if you don't know that you're, steps away from death, you'll know now. And this guy, no word of a lie, sat up straight, put his hands at 10 and 2, put the thing in gear and started to drive. And I was like, yes, this worked. It's awesome. Like I was so thrilled. Um, but if I hadn't thought it through first, I might have yelled at him, asked him for his badge number, I'm going to report you, da, 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 but I wasn't safe. It's just me and him on a bus in the cheap lot for Park and Fly, right? He could have kicked me off the bus. He could have done whatever he liked, and I wouldn't have gotten to New York. So thinking it through and choosing a response that was appropriate and would keep me safe, that's the power of this thought process. So that's the first part. The next thing I did was I said something, right? I didn't use, I'm just gonna say, I didn't use this formula that you're seeing here. And I'll tell you why I didn't, because I had no relationship with this human, right? What's the lifetime value of this event? I don't know him. I don't want to know him. I don't have any kind of relationship with him. I don't feel any kind of connection to him, and I certainly don't want to have a connection to him. So I'm not going to engage in a way that encourages dialogue. I engaged in a way that would get him to see that his comment was inappropriate and that I wanted him to do his job and nothing else, right? But when there is a lifetime value of the event, when it is somebody that you care about, when it's a coworker, a boss, a colleague, a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, a cousin, a child, whatever, we need to be careful of how we say things. That means we have to use our assertiveness skills and we have to talk about the problem more than the person. Okay. And so we can say something like, whenever this happens, I feel this way. And this is what I'd love to see happen in the future. Or, this is kind of how I was hoping this interaction would go. I'm feeling very disappointed that this has happened, right? You can talk about what you want, what you need, what you feel, what you think. That is taking ownership. What you'll notice is that nowhere on this slide do you see, when you do this, I feel this. Okay. Or you make me feel whatever. No. We're not laying blame. We're not shifting ownership of our feelings. We're going to say, hey, I feel this way because this has occurred and it wasn't what I was expecting. My expectations have not been met, right? So we got to remember the reasons why anger develops, and we want to communicate in a way that says, I feel like this is a problem and I would really love for you to help me. And this takes us to the asking part. Okay, and you'll notice that I did not ask the bus driver for anything. I basically reprimanded him for what he said and then hoped that he would just do his job. And fortunately, that worked out for me. There's no way that I was going to engage in problem-solving dialogue because there's no lifetime value in that event, right? I don't want to work together with the bus driver to make sure this doesn't happen again. Let his employer take care of that. I promise you, if he's going to be rude like that to somebody else will report him, right? Someone else will report him and he'll get what's coming. Excuse me. So when we're asking, the goal here is to invite engagement in problem-solving dialogue. It's not, why are you so dumb? Or I can't believe you did this. And why do you keep doing these things? And why do we keep fighting about this? It's not those kinds of questions. We're asking questions that encourage problem solving. How can we work together to ensure that this problem doesn't occur in the future? What do you need from me in order to make things easier for you? Like if this is a work challenge, we need each other to get our jobs done. What do you need from me in order to make things easier for you? This is what I need from you. Let's talk about how we can collaborate so that we can work smarter instead of harder, right? What behaviors can I change? What are the things that I can change to make this an easier process for you or to make things less stressful for you? What do you think you could do differently to make this relationship healthier? When we ask these kinds of questions and we engage in the dialogue and we listen, like really listen and really engage with each other, this is where connection grows. William Glasser, who is the founder or the developer of choice theory and reality therapy, says that every problem at its heart is a relationship problem. And this is something that shows up in my therapy room all the time, right? Every problem is at its heart a relationship problem. So if you have a problem with money, it's likely a relationship with yourself and your self-control. If you have a problem with smartphone usage, that's a relationship problem. The relationship that you have with your phone is controlling you more than you're controlling your phone. If you have a problem at work, you're not getting material or information on time to get your job done, that's a relationship problem, right? The relationship with the coworker who has to give you that work product so you can get your job done, there needs to be an enhancement in that relationship. So if every problem is at its heart a relationship problem, this is really, really essential, right? To engage in problem solving dialogue. Let's talk about what's going on here. How can we help each other? What can we do differently so that we get better outcomes? These conversations cannot be overlooked. So let's go back. What have we learned so far? We've learned that anger is a basic emotion. It is not behavior. It is a feeling. It's a feeling that every human on the planet experiences and expresses. Okay. We feel angry when our rules are broken, when our boundaries are violated, when our expectations are unmet, or our attempts at achieving our goals are interfered with or thwarted in some way. We've learned through the thought matrix that thoughts inform our emotions, which then inform our choices and our actions, and those eventually lead to our outcomes, good or bad. And we looked at the choice matrix, and we understand that our goal should always be to work towards making the right choices and having that feel good so that we can generate both positive short-term outcomes and positive long-term outcomes. And so I wanted to give you, I promised you I would give you 3 things. And so let me summarize those for you. So to calm those angry birds, these are the things that we need to do. Number 1, we need to think it through. We need to use TSA, that is to think first, say what is happening and how we feel about it, what we want, and then ask the person involved to help us solve the problem, right? Remember, if we're saying things like, you make me feel this way, or whenever you do this, this happens, this sort of thing, what we're doing then is laying blame. And what will happen is the other party will get defensive because you're focusing on them rather than focusing on the problem. As they get defensive, they will lob attacks back at you, and now you're fighting instead of problem solving. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to think things through. And once we've thought it through and we've decided on the best choice of action, we want to follow that through. Make choices based on your desired outcomes rather than trying to fix your feelings. This is so important because if you make choices just based on fixing your feelings, you're going to create negative outcomes for yourself and other people. But if you think it through and you say, okay, this is what the problem is, this is who is best able to help me solve the problem. Let me go and talk to them. I apologize. Let me go and talk to them and see if we can come to some kind of an agreement. And I will always focus on the problem instead of the people, right? I'm not going to make it about the person. I'm going to make it about the problem. I will focus on the problem instead of the person. And I will say what I need, say what I would like to see happen moving forward, and I will engage that other person in the problem solving process. Are there any questions or comments? This is when you can unmute yourself and share your questions or comments. I'm seeing here, Steph, you've used TSA many times since learning about it. Yes, can you share what that's like when you go through the TSA process? And you can take your mic off if you're able, or if you just want to put it in the chat. What is that experience like for you when you?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, it slows everything down. It gives you a nice framework to just take a breath, work through every question. And then I find my long-term goals become so much more clear once even if I write them down like little jot notes, and the long-term goals are so much more clear, and it makes it worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. That's so amazing. TSA is such a simple strategy. It really is. It's such a simple strategy. A lot of people are like, well, they spend a lot of time thinking about things, but they never take action. Some people are all about taking action, but they don't think it through first. But when you combine those two things together, it creates sort of that perfect storm that you can process clearly, and you can set your intentions for what you want, and then speak and act accordingly so that you're moving towards your desired outcome, as opposed to just always being in reaction mode. One of the things that I talk about a lot in therapy and in the books that I write is about taking responsibility. And I have this equation that I learned from Jack Canfield, and I use it a lot, and it is E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. And that means event plus response equals outcome, right? Events plus response equals outcome. So it's not the things that are happening to you in your life that are determining your outcomes. It's how you're responding to those events. And so we want to create this sense of responsibility. And how we do that is by conducting that self-evaluation, and that is thinking it through, right? Thinking things through, evaluating the situation, your emotional state, and what you want out of that, setting your intentions for your desired outcomes, and then acting accordingly. That is taking responsibility. And it's so much more effective than just being reactive. And like you say, it sets you up. Steph says it sets you up so wonderfully for assertive communication, because you're clear. You're clear on what's going on and why it's upsetting and how it's a problem. And you've already thought about how you would like it to be resolved. And now you're just engaging the other person in working with you to solve that problem. And when you do that and you do it effectively, relationships are strengthened, connection is fostered, and intimacy deepens. And that's what we want, is we want real connections, right? We want real connections, because every problem is at its heart a relationship problem. And so when we foster that connection and we foster the intimacy in those relationships, it deepens the relationship and strengthens it, so that it is easier to solve problems moving forward. I hope that you have found this helpful. Thank you so much for participating. Thanks for taking the time out, Steph, to be here on with me live. And for everyone who will watch this moving forward, I hope that you found it helpful. Now, how do you get in touch with us if you would like to know more about the services that we offer? We are Julie Christensen Counseling and Psychotherapy, also known as Spa for the Soul. We are located at 63 Ontario Street. That's downtown St. Catharines, near Ontario Street in St. Paul. 63 Ontario, and you can find us at juliechristensen.com. That's CHRISTIANSEN.com. And our phone number is 905-409-1869. So please, if you have any questions, any comments, if you're curious about how counseling or any of the classes that we offer might be useful for you, we actually offer Anger Solutions as a 10-week group class. And you can also go through the entire Anger Solutions process with me or with Norellis or Leah or Go. I think there are 4 of us now in the office that are certified in Anger Solutions. And I, of course, am the author of the book Anger Solutions and the program. But you can work with with any of our therapists to sort through the stuff that's contributing to your angry feelings, and we can get those angry birds calmed down for you. So please give us a call, and you can talk with any of our therapists free of charge. It's a free consultation, no obligation. And I guess the last thing that I will say is our next masterclass will take place 1 week from now on Thursday as well at noon. And you can go to our website, juliechristiansen.com, and you will see the entire agenda for all the masterclasses that will be coming up. And I believe, am I wrong, Steph, that the next one it's you?
It's me.
Do you want to talk about that very briefly?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to focus on protecting your peace, which and just a little reframe on self-care for first responders. That's what we're going to focus on, giving some tangible strategies that you can use literally right after the session.
Excellent. So even if you're not a first responder, I think you might find this useful, but certainly if you are a first responder, police, fire, EMTs, if you're
Frontline
a
healthcare
first responder in healthcare, even if you're a second responder, a lot of times the second responders, the guys that are driving the command posts and that sort of thing get left out of the loop. But certainly there are things that you can learn, and Steph is going to do a terrific job next week, I am sure. So please join us again for the next installment of our Spot for the Soul Masterclass, and thank you so much for attending. Right, I don't know how to turn off the live. We'll figure that out here. I suspect I just have to stop recording.